What I'd like to do now is to introduce Scott Belsky, our Chief Product Officer. He's the founder of Behance, which was our online creative community, and we were thrilled to welcome him back to Adobe. Please join me in welcoming Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanu. I am so excited to be back on the Max stage. Are all of you ready for a great Max? Come on, yeah. I could not be more proud of our teams and our new products and features we have for you this morning. All of them are going to help you accomplish more with more impact. Plus, we will unveil a few surprises that I am really excited about. But before we start with the news, I want to add to some of Shantanu's thoughts on creativity and our mission at Adobe. Creative Cloud is the work of thousands of passionate developers, designers, engineers, product managers, and experts in design, photography, video, and so much more. Their work is guided by feedback from so many of you, and we are all motivated by the belief that creativity is more important now than it has ever been. Creativity is the most unique, most fundamental human trait. A tech thinker I really respect, Kai-Fu Lee, just came out with a book outlining how more and more jobs will be replaced by automation. And among the safest jobs, he says, are creative professions. We'll never truly understand the origins of creativity. It could be a product of mistakes of the eye, clashes of difference, or childhood trauma. I think creativity is a mix of every life experience. It builds indiscriminately on everything we see, hear, and touch. But there's one thing we do know. Algorithms will never replace the human imagination. Now, like a lot of you, I've become distraught and occasionally disillusioned by how divided and polarized our world has become. But as all of us in this room know, creativity is one of those rare forces that brings people back together. Creativity transcends ideology and goes straight for the jugular of emotion and understanding. It breaks through barriers, and it does, in fact, connect us all. At Adobe, we believe that being able to express yourself creatively is a fundamental skill that every person needs, just as they learn to read and write or add and subtract. Creativity is an essential form of literacy. Producing tools for creative people makes all of us on the Creative Cloud team excited to come to work every day. As we develop the next generation of our tools, we are guided by three important principles: accelerate your work, liberate your creativity, and drive new mediums. Let's look at this first principle, accelerate your work. We do this by making our tools easier to use, streamlining time-consuming tasks, and helping you learn new skills and techniques. Now, I know the creative process is never simple, and bringing your ideas to life will always involve some struggle. But that struggle should not be with your tools. So we're focused on modernizing, simplifying, and accelerating performance across Creative Cloud. If you need to learn a new technique or how to use a new product, we're making it easier with a new generation of step-by-step tutorials and support integrated deeply into Creative Cloud apps. We're also helping the community support each other in new ways with live streaming. 1 year ago, we launched Adobe Live on Behance. And since then, 1.5 million creatives around the world have viewed more than 66 million minutes of people creating in our tools. The average watch time is actually more than 100 minutes per user. So much of creativity is learned by watching others create, and we're really trying to bring back that era of apprenticeship with live streaming. So stay tuned for more there. We're also launching new features that make you more productive. Even when you know a tool inside out, there are some tasks that just take much more time than they should, like masking complicated images or tagging a full day's worth of photos, for instance. And so we're streamlining those kinds of tasks with Adobe Sensei, our artificial intelligence engine, and you're going to see a lot of examples of Sensei throughout some of the demos today. Okay, the second principle that drives our work is to liberate your creativity. Despite all that is packaged with Creative Cloud as a service, much of your work is still bound to the desktop, constrained within whatever tool you are using. But creativity doesn't happen only when you're sitting at your desk. and your best creative work isn't constrained to a single tool. Creativity happens at the intersection of different environments and disciplines when your tools work together beautifully. So today, we will share a major inflection point for Creative Cloud as our tools start to evolve from desktop applications into multi-surface systems. This transformation will enable you to work more collaboratively across multiple devices and take full advantage of all that Creative Cloud has to offer. Creative Cloud should allow you to create anywhere. This vision requires a tool like Photoshop to extend beyond the desktop. But it also means that all of your assets, your projects, your fonts, your brushes, your presets must be at your fingertips at all times. The full power of Creative Cloud comes through when, for instance, you create a composite in Photoshop and apply it to a 3D scene in Dimension, or when you take a design from Adobe XD and animate it in After Effects. Creative Cloud now delivers a friction-free workflow between apps, transcending the power of any one particular tool. But these are not new ideas. They just have never been fully cracked. So to deliver, we needed to reconceive some of our products and services from the ground up. And we're going to show you how we're doing this today. The third major principle behind our work is to drive new mediums. It's clear that voice and augmented reality will become increasingly important vectors of design over the coming years. One estimate is that smart speakers like Amazon's Echo will actually be in the majority of US homes by 2022. As for augmented reality, we believe it will offer a new and more integrated layer over the world around us. AR will soon be the best way to navigate a new city, to find what you need in a big store, or even fix one of your household appliances. As we learned in previous transitions from print to web and web to mobile, designers and other creatives who don't learn how to create for these new mediums will miss out on important opportunities. But we are committed to helping you succeed in new mediums like voice and augmented reality, and we're going to share some really exciting updates with you today on this front. Okay, so keep these three principles in mind because you're about to see how they come to life. We are going to move fast because we have a lot of amazing updates and announcements to share, and we are going to start off with Terry White and Danielle Marimoto, showing you some of the ways that we are accelerating your work, making you more efficient in your everyday creativity. So let's give a warm welcome to Terry and Danielle.
Well, thanks, Scott. I'm super excited to be here to show you some of my favorite new features and, more importantly, updates in Photoshop CC and something else a little bit later. So, how many of you use Photoshop? Awesome. All right, let's get started with some updates that you've been asking for years. First of all, I'm in a Photoshop document and I want to edit text. Well, you know, go to the type tool, click in the wrong place. Now you're adding text instead of editing. Well, now, just like InDesign and Illustrator, I can double click to edit text. More importantly, once I'm done, I don't have to know how to click a commit button, find the right key on the keyboard. I just click away to auto-commit. Next up, I want to go in now and change the color. Well, now we have the brand new color wheel, among all the other ways of changing color, but you'll find this color wheel works in color harmony, and you'll see it throughout the day, especially in the mobile section. So I can click a range of color that I want to work with, click away, nah, that's not it. How about something in the fuchsia category, like matching my shirt? Nah, that's not it. How about something maybe in the reds, or you've been here before, right? You won't know it till you see it. But then you make that change, and then you kind of like, well, maybe I liked it the way it was in the beginning. No longer do you have to know the secret keyboard shortcut, because today, Command-Z, 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 Command-Z. Something you've been asking for years. All right, so with that said, last thing I want to do, I want to free transform this, and I know what you're thinking. He's about to reach for the Shift key because that made sense 2 decades ago. No, it didn't. I no longer have to hold down the Shift key because scale proportionally is on by default. And those are just a few of the many updates that you've been asking for. Double-click to edit text, click away to auto-commit, Command-Z, 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 and of course, free transform proportional by default. I'm going to switch over to my next image where I'd love to do a modern-day double exposure effect. I've got the bear, I've got the forest, you see where this is going. Now, in order to do this, I need to cut the bear out. So I would traditionally reach over for my quick select tool. I would start making that selection and start dragging, you get the idea. We're not going to do that anymore because we have the brand new Adobe Sensei-powered Select Subject. So with one click, Photoshop will figure out what the subject is and make that selection for me. All right. Now, I need to turn that into a mask, which is the very next button, Select and Mask. When I click on Select and Mask, I can see that, well, there's a little bit of background left in the fur, so I'm going to use the new Surface Pen on the brand new Surface Studio, Microsoft Surface Studio here. And we're just going to go ahead and just paint that right out with the Refine Edge tool built right in. All right, once I get that beautiful mask, I'll just go ahead and click away, click OK. It will make the mask for me. I will then use that beautiful mask on the background. I'll just drag it down, and you're thinking, okay, well, how am I going to see the forest? Well, traditionally, you'd use a blend mode, but you'd either have to know which one you want or go through them one by one to see which one looks best, clicking each time. Well, I'm happy today to introduce live blend modes now in Photoshop. So I just click, I hover over the ones until I find the one I want. And I'm done. Adobe Sensei powered Select Subject, new and improved Select and Mask, and more importantly, live blend modes. Now, for my graphic designers in the audience, you've been here before where you want to lay out multiple images on the canvas. We want to fill in that last image up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over from my CC library. When I drag it over, no problem, scale it down. Sweet. All right, once I get it down, I would still have to figure out how to select it and mask it and get it just right. So I'm not going to do any of that because instead I'm going to use the brand new frame tool here in Photoshop CC. I'll just go ahead and drag my frame out. My InDesign users just clapped. I'm going to drag my frame out and I'm just going to drag this image in and it will do two things for me. It will perfectly size the image down and it will automatically mask off any excess image. I still have access to the whole image, though. So if I want to free transform it, I can, scaling it within the frame and moving it around in the frame without having to know how to mask it perfectly. Now, if you're thinking that frames are limited to just rectangles, you couldn't be further from the truth because here's text that I converted into a frame with just a right click. Here's an elliptical frame done with the frame tool. And more importantly, here's a vector frame from a guitar that I got from Adobe Stock. And I just right-click, convert it into a frame, and I drag over my Adobe Stock image right into it, and beautiful masks are easy now in Photoshop. Now, in this case, I've got multiple artboards. Artboards is an amazing feature inside of Photoshop and Illustrator. And in this case, I would love to visualize my design in the 3D space. Now, Photoshop's had 3D for years, but it's a bad word if you don't know what 3D is or if you don't know how to work in 3D. So a year ago, we introduced a brand new tool called Adobe Dimension. And Adobe Dimension allows you to pre-visualize or visualization of your branding in a photorealistic environment easily. And that's the key. So let's switch over to Adobe Dimension. And here's Adobe Dimension. I've got this backpack, magazine, this travel adventure scene set up, ready to go. And I'm going to go to my operating system here, grab that exact same PSD, and drag it in. So there it is, dragging it in. And when I get there, you'll notice the logo from the first artboard comes in. We'll scale it down, and it's already matching and mapping to that. Wait, you don't believe me? Look at that. It's matching and mapping to that backpack. automatically. Imagine having to do that in Photoshop and warping it and trying to get it in the right space. I just did it by dragging and dropping. Now, once I'm here, I want to also change the materials here. And when I double click on this, I keep double clicking, there we go. When I double click on the backpack, I'm going to use another new feature, which is multiple layered materials. So I just switch the material, multiple layers, and now my logo doesn't look good. So, well, wait a minute. I remember I have multiple artboards. I can now access those artboards right in Adobe Dimension. Switch to one that looks better, and away I go. Now, if you're thinking, well, how do I really see that? New in Adobe Dimension, the ability to bookmark your camera views. So if there's a view that you really like, just switch to it. This isn't even rendered yet, and it looks cool. All right, now, my favorite new feature in Adobe Dimension is this is great for me working on my desktop, but what if I need to share this with all of you or share it with my client? How will they really experience this? Well, new in Adobe Dimension, the ability to publish a 3D scene to the web. Create a link, all set. Once I click that, I'm not going to wait for it to render, but we're going to just pop over to the browser where I've got this all set and ready to go, and here it is in the browser for the client to work with it. I don't know, I'm just strange. I like looking at the bottom. But anyway, there it is. And not only does my client get to move it around, but they get the same bookmarks. They get to jump to exactly what they want to see. So with that said, those are just a few of my favorite features in Photoshop and Dimension. I can't wait to see what you do with it. I can't wait till you get your hands on it today. And with that said, Danielle, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry. All right, so I am stoked to be here to now share some of my favorite features, starting off in InDesign. So let's just jump right into it and start with a better way of placing images. Now, previously, I'd grab the frame tool, draw out my frame, and then drop in my image. Now, as soon as I do that, this image just got placed really large, so I actually can't even see the person in this frame right now. So this is typically, when I go in and I adjust it, and I adjust it again, and again, and this is just when I spend a lot of time futzing around trying to get this thing right. Well, with the new feature, Content Aware Fit, when I now drop this image into the frame, it intelligently places it for me. So what this is doing is it's looking at the aspect ratio and the dimension of the frame, and it's actually evaluating the content of the image itself. So I can still go in and I can adjust each of these photos, but up front, it's now doing a much better job. Now, I also want to note really quickly that we've added a new contextual properties panel to InDesign. So just like you have across our applications, there's now a single panel that adjusts based off of your selection. All right, so let's move on to the next feature, which is layout adjustment. So I have a magazine layout, looks pretty good. It's basically finished, and my client loves it, but they have one last change. Now, my client wants to change the document size. I'm sure none of you have ever had a client come back with last-minute changes. You know where that's going? Yeah, shocking. Pretty unheard of. Well, this is a huge pain because now I have to go in and I have to relay out every single one of these pages. Well, now InDesign handles this all completely for you. So by selecting the new feature, Layout Adjustment, when I now select OK, it intelligently relays out my entire design. Yes, this is crazy. This feature literally just saved me hours, if not days of work. So I can still go in and I can tweak a couple things here and there, but it does a really great job. So those are some really fast features in InDesign, but now let's head over to Adobe Illustrator. Now, some Illustrator fans out there? I'm a designer, and I know that it is really good practice to design using symbols. Now, do I always do that? No. Please don't judge me. Sometimes, I get really inspired, I start copying and pasting, and then all of a sudden I realize I need to make a change, but I have, potentially hundreds of these objects now. Well, by selecting the new feature, Global Edit, it finds every single visual instance of my selection. So now when I go in to make that one change, it's looking like a weird banana plant. There we go. It updates across my entire file. This is a huge time saver. So I never made this a symbol, and I can still make really large changes across my entire document at any point in time. All right, so last but not least, one of the most fundamental tools in Illustrator is the gradient. So we have the basics, right? There are linear and radial gradients, and these are super easy to use, but not the most flexible. And then there are mesh gradients. Now, meshes, super powerful, but not always the easiest to get your desired result. I actually spent a bit longer than I would like to admit making this circle, and it is just a very basic circle. So you've told us you want something that is just as powerful as mesh gradients, but as easy to use as the basics. Well, the new freeform gradients does exactly that. Now, this is powered by Adobe Sensei and revolves around adding points. So as soon as I do, and I start to move this around, the colors fuse really naturally together. And each of these points has a set of properties that I can adjust. So I'll go in and change the color, bring down the opacity, and I can even adjust the intensity of this diffusion directly on the point itself. Now again, I can add as many points here and there as I like, and moving these around, colors are fusing together really organically, so I can start to create some very complex gradients really simply. Now, freeform gradients are also aware of shape boundaries, so I'll go ahead and add a gradient to this circle, and you'll just see that really quickly, I'll start to adjust this design to create almost a 3D effect, and it's really quick and easy to use these freeform gradients. Now, I've been drawing simply using points, but you'll see that freeform gradients also enables drawing with paths as well. And this just allows for an insane amount of control over anything that you want to create. Yes. This is just scratching the surface. Freeform gradients are super powerful, but also really intuitive to use. All right, so those were some really fast features, just a few of my favorites from today's release, and we are really excited for you all to start using them. Thank you.
So thank you, Terry and Danielle. Those demos give you just a sense of all that we've done to accelerate your work. And our teams will continue listening to you and making the little and sometimes big changes that make you more productive. Now, we have so much news today that we can't give you a demonstration of everything, but I did want to let you know about a few improvements that cut across Creative Cloud that make all of your work easier. So the first is a new way to navigate your recent documents and access helpful tutorials whenever you need them. The new home screen intelligently grows with you and your skill level. It is chock full of learning support and sources of inspiration, so I hope you check it out. Now let's talk about fonts. Choosing just the right font is an important foundation of most creative projects, and today we are vastly expanding your choices. Up to now, you were only allowed to sync 100 desktop fonts at a time, and many of our fonts weren't even available for desktop use at all. So starting today, we are doing away with all limits on font use, and all fonts in the library are available on both desktop and mobile and web. We are also expanding the font library tremendously. There are now over 15,000 fonts in your library, including hundreds just added from Monotype and Type Network, and they're available to all Creative Cloud subscribers. We're also making it easier to find just the right type by better integrating font discovery and selection into our products. And given these changes, Typekit will now be known as Adobe Fonts to reflect the fact that fonts aren't a separate product, but a feature woven throughout Creative Cloud to make your life easier and your work better. Finally, I'm excited to share just a quick update on Adobe Stock. We've added new Adobe Sensei-powered search features to make it much faster and more intuitive to find the exact image or asset you need. We've also partnered with GoPro to bring you access to exclusive video assets, and we're making it easier to sell your work on stock with the most creative-friendly rates in the industry.